Hello and welcome. That's the sound of an oil can delay. In the Strymon Timeline MX, there's a lot of great delays. But I think, a victim of its own success, with the L cap and whatnot, I think the tape delay steals the show so much. And other delays don't get a chance to get their love. Maybe the BBD, excuse me, the analog delay model, the D bucket. But there's a lot of other very worthy delays with their own character. And the oil can is definitely on the vintage side and definitely has its own character. If you're not familiar with how an oil can delay works, and that's completely understandable, they're vintage technology. When we like it, we call it vintage. And it had problems like the oil's pretty nasty stuff. And, like with a lot of those early delay technologies like the tapes, it's, the maintenance is kind of a nightmare. But it uses an aluminum disc. This isn't one. This is a coffee heater, but just for illustration. And it's a rotating disc. It spins like a vinyl record. And it's usually, I think they got usually a carbon coating, something of that nature on it. And then it's put in an oil bath. And you have a record head and a read head or two, so playback head. We'll just talk about one playback head for simplicity. But what happens is the oil acts as a dielectric, and a dielectric is, unlike a conductor where the electrons can just freely pass through, the dielectric is an insulator, but what it allows to happen is if I put an electrical potential near it, it will, the other conductive side here, the plate, the electrons will migrate to the in concert with that charge, and basically create a static electrostatic, a static charge, a static electricity charge that mirrors the record head's voltage level, signal level, and so you get sort of a electrostatic, a static electricity recording of the signal, kind of like the groove, if you had a groove in a record. And as the record head records it and the disc spins, that part of the charge comes around and the read head can read it. And that's how you get an echo. And the delay time is the physical time it takes for this guy to spin around. So what you've basically got there, if you've noticed, you've got a charge, a dielectric, and you get a static electrical charge that is congruent with that. What you've basically got is a form of capacitor. And, where else do we see capacitors? The buckets in a bucket brigade device, but those are individual buckets where the charge, you take a sample of the signal at any point and put it in the bucket, and then the buckets, like a fire brigade, continually swap that charge level, which relates to that signal, analogous to that signal. And that's how you create the delay there. This is one continuous charge, which is neat. It's continuous, but that's, quite problematic because they're not nice, neat little sequestered buckets. So there's a lot of leakage and degradation and those kinds of things, those kinds of artifacts that create, when we like it, we call it character, call it voicing and character. From a technical standpoint, it's a flaw. From an artistic standpoint, it's kind of what we want. And that's basically how they work. I will link in the description to a forum chain with a guy a couple of years ago that was restoring one, and so he's got all kinds of pictures and better information on that if you want. Now, I'm going to go ahead and run this at about 500 milliseconds. Just I find that's a good, where you can really hear each echo kind of speak. Repeats all the way down, the color controls, grit and filter all the way down, the modulation down, off, so you can just hear the character of the echo itself. And this is that echo. Test. That's my borosilicate coffee cup. That was a bend. So that's the basic sound. Now, if you notice something, you heard you heard a number of repeats, even though the repeat level was all the way down. The reason being is on this primitive electrostatic device with a record head and a read head, a playback head, or sometimes two playback heads, no erase head. So that's the natural decay of the. So it's always kind of in sound on sound, really. But that's the natural decay of the charge. So, it's not a very permanent way of storing things, unlike a tape. It's just going to degrade all by itself and relatively quickly at that. So it's kind of an interesting part of that. It's in that, there is kind of this inherent echo quality to it. So, a cannon in a box, around the rounds in a box, call and response type thing, isn't really its strong point. It's an echo with, echo, echo, echo. It's an echo that kind of has its own natural resonances and levels, but we can add repeats, and that will give us a bunch of echoes. So yeah, it's got a very kind of natural decay to it. If you'll notice, though, you get this kind of, well, not really polyrhythmic, but an arrhythmic, not the delays from the original ghost. Well, just call it that aren't the extra delays from the natural decay that aren't going through the regenerative path, through the feedback path, um, and the repeats from the taken from the playback head don't match up time-wise very well at all, and it just creates a sort of a more complex, echo kind of, you get kind of that diffusion of various echo times. Test. Almost like one of those ping pong ball delays, where it kind of sounds like a ping pong ball that's been dropped in table tennis, if you play a lot, and it kind of creates that sound where the delays get shorter. I mean, all the spaces sort of fill in and fill in, and not at this lockstep rhythm. Lion face, lemon face, lion face, lemon face. Okay, on we go. So yeah, that was with a number of repeats. And one thing I'd like to take a look at real quickly is, again with these, you can really bring the repeats level up, so you can really hear how it decays. Decay. Now, I don't know if Strymon put an internal limiter on that. I assume that they did, because a lot of these kind of older analog systems, if you get get the feedback above unity, they can kind of the self oscillation you hear about it, the runaway echoes, where you're like, save the speakers, and you have try to hit the panic switch or kick out the cable real quickly. But I think they did a hell of a job, because I was ready to pull the ripcord on the panic button there and deal with it. So, but it evens right out at that highly intense level. So they've done a great job, I think, about giving you that kind of intensity with feedback just going all the way, but without the danger, which is pretty cool. And that is just, I think, a really neat feature, because the way these things decay is really cool. And I think that the oil can has a very distinct decay to it, which is a big part of the sound of that. But onward from there, let's go ahead and take a listen to the color controls. Filter. This is no filter. This is a whole bunch. Test. Test. So, we got that high end roll off, and it sounds a little throaty, that kind of upper, I mean, maybe not even throaty, but, there's kind of that upper mid. I don't know if you noticed that when the filter was all the way down, all the way, not filtering all the way off, um, the infinite repeats really seemed at least at 500 milliseconds, really seemed to get along with the cowbell. Like that was kind of the sweet spot in the frequency retention, I think, of the echoes, where that was still sort of articulate and still really there, where a lot of the other voices just sort of mushed out. Yeah, so it just kind of rounds it out. Again with these, Strymon I think is doing a great job with things like these color controls, in that at least on these very traditional sounds, uh, the controls, the design decision, I'm sure, but the controls are decently subtle in that you're working in kind of that natural environment, and the filters don't go crazy out of control. I think there's other more modern delay models over here that allow you to kind of get into the crazier stuff, but this gives you a very usable musical range. And what's nice about that is having that usable musical range is your sweet spot's wide. You're not having to do this thing where, oh, well, that's where it sounds good between 160 and 162. I like that, and it'll take me 15 minutes to find it. You've got it, just by nature of restricting the range to usable stuff, you get real good handles well. You got good control. Let's take a listen to the grit. Filter all the way down. Put in some moderate repeats, so feedback repeats, so we can kind of hear how that works. And we'll start with the grit down. This is the grit. This is no grit. This is all the grit. So that is the grit control. It does get gritty, and I think one thing it does, what I'm hearing with a practical application of it is, it with any filter, that is filtering out certain frequencies, band passes and low passes and whatnot. Adding, that's pretty common to add some distortion. which just adds a lot of high frequency content, and it kind of makes it it gives the filter something to grab on, and it kind of gives it some teeth, and sometimes it maintains a little bit of articulation, and you can, I think, really hear that in the repeats, where the repeats don't go quietly into that good night, in that they're a little more distinct, but you can hear the degradation. It doesn't just smooth out into the mush, but you actually kind of hear degradation artifacts, which is kind of neat, which is, I think, the reason for it. But again, I think a real usable control, it's not going into crazy super fuzz, but that's not really the point. So that sounds good. The modulation sounds like, to me, like a pretty standard time modulation LFO, that's going to modulate the delay time and hence the pitch and a little bit on the time. So grit filter all the way down. We'll get some repeats on there, just to give us something to work with. Test. Bring up the mod depth. And we get some speed on it. Test. I don't want to break my cup. Well, you can really hear it in the high frequency chime of my coffee cup. It's funny, interesting note on that. When you get the speed almost all the way up, it sounds it almost disappears into the audio realm when you start getting really, really fast LFOs, or I don't know if you've ever used an LFO and you start cranking it up and you actually start getting into the audio. It stops turning from an event like a tick, a clock event, to just a sound, a sound event, a wave event in the wave of the sound. And it seems like Strymon's getting really close there, because at the very end, it got super fluttery, and then it almost disappeared into just the waveform itself. But I hope you brought your Dramamine when you're down, a little bit lower. It's very usable. It's you just get kind of that flutter effect. It's just but it's a very even effect. But I think it matches the oil can well. And is very controllable. So, in with the kind of natural imprecision of the can of the platter, this, I think, complements that well. So you can really get a little extra drama out of that. So yeah, real impressed with that part. A quick look under the hood. Excuse me. There doesn't appear to be a second model for it, but you can add the swells and the ducts and those things that are common to kind of the Strymon MX models, and that's great to have all that, the panning and the tap division and whatnot. So there isn't another model, but there is the head select. We were just using, like I was saying, on the platter. You've got a record head, but you might have a playback head, and you might have a second playback head, a long one that's further down the track and a short one that's further up the track from the record head. So here we would have the long head, the long head would give us that. The short head would give us that. And you can turn on both. And you get a more complex delay. Now, I think with the oil can already having some of that asynchronous stuff in it, that just bumps you up further. When you start getting, essentially a diffusion, within your echoes. So you get, I'm not going to say it's a reverb, but you get into that kind of territory where you don't have these equal delays, but you just get a series of unevenly spaced delays to give you more of that kind of environmental sound as opposed to strict repeats. If we going to go ahead and add some of the various things to try to tune something that's a little spatial. Test. 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 There we're getting more into space territory. Especially listen to that warble, that hum, that kind of background hum where the delay has really decayed. You've got those kind of very distinct echoes, but then listen to the background. Yeah. So there's quite a bit of that there, which is kind of cool. Let's just play with it a little bit. Let's. One thing I want to see is how, if I come off 500 milliseconds, how it will react to that cowbell, to see how that resonance of the other echoes are affected by the time. Test. 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 Well, I will say that the resonance with the cowbell seems to be more about the frequency response and the overall, I think, the feedback path and just the overall recording process, as opposed to strictly related to the playback speed and the delay time. Good to know. Yeah, so that is a kind of a basic overview of the oil can. I'll play here for a couple of seconds. Really, where I think it shines is in the decay and that long decay. Where you get a cloud at the end there. I could see it, if you really want to go super vintage, if you really want to, get kind of a golden age sci-fi sound, Science Fiction Hall of Fame Volume 1. Yeah. Shout out. That fits the bill. So I think it, gives a very primitive sounding delay that, may harken back to old time radio to some extent, or other just very garagey kind of feel. Test. Turn those repeats up. Get a little grit. I will say, I think the grit tends to work well with a little more sustained signals. It seems like with the really percussive, fast decay stuff, there just isn't that much of an envelope to I think, really read as grit, because you're still in the attack spike, which probably covers up the grit. A lot of times I think with instruments that have an attack spike, but sustain out, you get that initial pick attack or what have you, and that creates kind of its own little grit, its own little noise, and it's when it smooths out as your air column or your string, whatever is ringing out. That's where the grit kind of comes in. Grit. A little more grit. I don't want to break my cup. Add a little depth. Give it a little there. Give it a little of that. And we'll smooth it out. Yeah, see, that feels a little throaty to me, which I like. So it's a funny little delay. Yeah, as you heard, I think if you arpeggiate things, you're not going to get those well-behaved stack arpeggios. I think again, it's in that kind of big long decay where it's really you get kind of that beta sound. I have the mix turned up pretty high for demonstration. Probably bring it down quite a bit. I think that would be a little more controllable. But yeah, so that's the oil can delay. A very quirky little animal, but I think they did a great job with. While being quirky, it's under some good digital control and sounds really good. Has that dark brooding sound that I think you'll find useful. I will let you go. Thank you so much. And again, if there's anything you want me to look at, by all means, just go ahead and drop me a line and I'll take a look at it. See if I can't demo whatever you need for me to demo. And check out the link in the description for that forum thread with the restoration of an actual oil can delay.